Top 5 rap website.com. You already know what's going on. Today we got the end of year 2020 list. So what a year it's been between COVID and between other things. Glad we're all here to recap together. So for this list, I'm going to omit my number 5, my actual number 5 spot, which is The Weeknd After Hours. Only because this list is mostly hip hop. In the past, my lists have been a lot more R&B, so much so that I've created entirely separate lists just for the non-hip hop albums. But this year it was way more hip hop than any other genre. So number 10 on my best of 2020 list, Lil Baby, My Turn. I thought that was a great album, and Lil Baby is a artist who I just really came to appreciate this year with his release of My Turn, the deluxe version. He came on the scene with Gunna, and I really wasn't feeling the Drip or Drown series. I just thought it was gimmicky. I really didn't give it a fair shot, to be completely honest. But Lil Baby came back with My Turn and really impressed me. Songs like Something to Prove, Emotionally Scarred, which I've reacted to, look at my channel. Great, great album. It may go down as a classic for Lil Baby. We gotta see how the years pass, but this is a very impactful year for Lil Baby. Number 9, I give it to Quelle, Descendants of Cain. So obviously this is an anticipated release for me. If you watch this channel, you know I like Quelle. Very detailed, poet-like MC. This is a real nighttime album. If I need something to listen to at night, something real mellow, I throw in Descendants of Cain, and it had that theme, real biblical theme, the Cain and Abel story, and how he tied that into brothers in the neighborhood. I don't want to ruin the album for you if you haven't heard it, but Descendants of Cain by Quelle. Quelle is always gonna, give us quality. So we need that Metal Clergy album too with Rock Marcy. Just saying. Number 8, Conway, The Machine, From King to a God. So this Conway project was very polished. It was very, the first time I heard first time I heard Conway, man, it might have been a mixtape. It might have been a mixtape like in 2017, 2018, and it didn't really leave me too impressed sound quality wise. The guys were still coming up. Griselda was still coming up. You listen to From King to a God and it's like, wow, like, this is polished. This has like great verses. He still sounds hungry, and he sounds like he has something to prove on top of that. So I think this is Conway's best project of any that I've heard. This is one of the best Griselda projects. I think you could even put this next to 10 and Talk 3. Number 8, Nas, King's Disease. So I know a lot of East Coasters, y'all wanted this Nas album, to sound like Alchemist, even though Alchemist from California. So you want to sound like Alchemist, Derringer. You want it to be gritty, sound like the streets of Brooklyn. You about to go to a bodega and all this stuff. And Hit Boy just gave you lush, sophisticated production. And a lot of people couldn't take that. But for those who were able to appreciate it, this King's Disease album, very, very good. Mature Nas. And again, there's a theme here. Well executed theme, but it's not too overbearing to the point where you're listening to the album, you feel like you gotta connect the puzzle piece. Like listening to a Blu Baby album or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The King's Disease being women, vices, and things like that, which Nas explains throughout the album. I think Hit Boy probably put himself as producer of the year with this King's Disease project. So big shout out to Nas, big shout out to Hit Boy. So Lil Baby, My Turn is 10. Quelle, Descendants of Cain at number 9. At number 8, Conway the Machine, From King to a God. At number 7, Nas, King's Disease. Number 6, Innocent Country 2 by Quelle Chris and Chris Keys. This is an album that I actually had downloaded for a while, and it took me a while to listen to it. I did enjoy Quelle Chris's Guns project. Guns is probably my favorite song of last year. It's a very pretty song, the chords is very pretty. I don't know why it took me so long to finally listen to Innocent Country 2. Maybe it's because of the title of the album. Maybe it's because of the album cover. I just thought it was going to be a more dark album. Like on some parts of Guns was more dark. The Guns title track was very pretty and glittery, but the rest of the album is not really like that. Songs like Obamacare, Wheaties, etc. So anyways, this Innocent Country album though, one thing that I really like about it is it's all very cohesive. And I know that's a word we use a lot in this area that we're in hip hop, but it is very cohesive. There's a You can tell that there's a common producer because the sound doesn't stray too far away from what it's trying to do. It's a very light sound, bright sounding album. I'm just speaking sound quality wise, because the content it does get pretty dark. Songs like Sudden Death, you're dancing to it like it's a Charlie Brown jingle, but the song is called Sudden Death. So very pretty sounding album, very bright, light sounding in production. I think I prefer this to any Kelly Chris project. I think I may need just more Kelly Chris and Chris Keys collaborations and productions, because I really like the production on this. I usually like Kelly Chris projects, but this is my favorite. I won't even say probably my favorite Kelly Chris project. Innocent Country 2 is my favorite Kelly Chris project. So, and that's saying a lot. Number 5, Run the Jewels 4 by Run the Jewels. So this is a very timely album, and on all of these albums, I've done reactions on every single one, except the Innocent Country 2 and the Lil Baby My Turn. This is, when I did the reaction to Run the Jewels 4, I said it then, this is a very timely album. It hits right at the right time. They're talking about all the right things. There are songs that they recorded in 2019 for this Run the Jewels 4 album that they included on this album, but were still relevant. So things dealing with police brutality, things dealing with classism, wealth inequality. So this album could have came out in 2015, it can come out in 2020, and it can probably come out in 2030. It was my album of the year for a long time, but I ended up placing these other albums ahead of it just because I played them more. You know, I may feel like this is the best album to come out, but my actual habits shows that I play these next albums a lot more on a regular basis. Run the Jewels 4, a bit heavy to play every day for me, you know, just to keep putting that in my head. Look at all these slave masters posted on your dollars. I refuse to just hear that all day, every day, even though it's the truth. But you know, we gotta have a little breathing space. We gotta have a little mental, you know, clarity space. So it didn't end up my number 1, but it could easily be number 1. But these albums, I just played a lot more. Number 4, Miles by Blu Exile. So shout out to Blu, shout out to Exile. I did a full-fledged album review on this. This is one of the longer albums that I heard this year. And when I first saw the length at, I think it's about 1:20, I was a bit hesitant, but I said, you know what, this is Blu Exile. I know they always give us great music. Let me put this on a CD. I bought the album, I burned it to a CD, and I listened to it. It was so big, it couldn't fit on one CD. It's 2 CDs. And I listened to it over the course of weeks, maybe 3 weeks to a month, different settings, etc., just so I can really get a feel for this really big album. And not only is it big, it's really great. I don't really use length as a negative aspect towards albums unless it becomes negative. Like if we get fatigued listening to the album, if there's filler tracks, if it's just long for the purpose of being long, then yeah, I'm going to say something. But just an album being inherently long isn't going to make me be negative towards it. This album doesn't feel its length though. And again, another one of those albums with a really prominent theme, but it's not too tight to the point where you feel like you have to connect dots within the album, or you feel like if you miss a song, you're going to miss out on the overall theme. At least from what I got. This is a part biographical for Blu, and it's part inspirational. So what do I mean by that? Blu's kind of telling his story like he always does, you know, songs like You Ain't Never Been Blue, where he's talking about his personal anecdotes, but then it's also part is inspirational, which I think is where the Miles title kicks in, because he speaks about where he got his influences from, who influenced him to do music, and really just overall inspiration, his inspiration as it relates to music. So Miles Davis being one of those. There's a song featuring Jacinto Rhymes on this album where they just talk about the roots of Blu, and then they talk about, Blu talks about music is my everything, and he names all these artists and people that inspired him. It's not an album theme that you're gonna miss out on if you're not listening as intently as a top 5 rap website, but you can catch on to it even if it's just playing in the background. Very great album. Exile on the boards, I mean, who does it better? Number 3, Rich Off Mackin 2 by RJMrLA and Royce the Choice. So this is a big regional pick for me. I didn't expect to have this on my list, and I had it lower But I'm like, bruh, the amount of times I've played this album this year, probably more than any other album on my list, it would be asinine if this was not high. I would just be lying to myself if I tried to put an album that I didn't listen to as much and enjoy. Cause I'll be in my car like really screaming the lyrics, real ignorant with it, with this Rich Off Mackin 2 album, RJ and Choice. So it's not one of these albums like we've seen before. It's not a Miles or a Run the Jewels 4 or a King's Disease, you know, with the theme and the built out sophistication and concept. It's just a really fun regional album, banging beats, great hooks by RJMrLA. Check out his On God album from last year if you haven't already. And Royce the Choice comes in and provides a nice chemistry and balance to RJ's melodic style. So I really enjoyed this album. This could have been number 2 or number 1, but number 2 and number 1. Let's get to those. Number 2, Electronica, A Written Testimony. So there's a lot of people who said negative things about this album. I think a lot of you were influenced by the Joe Budden podcast. He was talking bad about the album. I think he had like a personal spat with Electronica. I don't know what it is. All I know is this album, I don't care if it features Hove. I don't care that Hove is on almost half of the album. That's a plus to me. I don't look at this album and say, oh, Jay-Z's on half of it. Oh, that excites me. What did Electronica say? Debut album featuring Hove. This is highway robbery. It's highway robbery. So we should be thankful that we got Hove speaking like this on an album like this. You know, I love the Farrakhan throughout the album. I love the Ezekiel's Will lyrics. Sometimes like Santiago at crucial points in my novel. I did a whole Rate the Bars episode just on that little 4-bar couplet right there. So A Written Testimony, Electronica's first album, and dang it, I will say he met my expectations. I didn't think it was going to come out. Electronica actually has me blocked on social media at this very moment because when he was rolling out the album, I just didn't believe it. So I think I posted like some meme, or maybe it was like the Nick Young meme with the question marks, like, is it really coming out? I guess he didn't like that, he blocked me, but I still like the album, so. Oh well. And my album of the year for 2020, Mozzy, Beyond Bulletproof. Now y'all know I'm a long time Mozzy listener. Well, I won't say too long term. I caught on around 2016 when I was living in the Bay Area and everyone's telling me, Mozzy, Filthy Rich, Mozzy, Filthy Rich. Like those are, and this is when Drake was like still at the forefront. I went to the Bay, like they wasn't really talking about, they on Mozzy. So I really tapped into Mozzy back then. Yeah, man, he's consistent. He's like a currency. He's consistently dropping music and it's always what you expect or better. Beyond Bulletproof, I think, if you look at all of Mozzy's projects, he has maybe almost 100 projects. I'm not even lying. I'm not even gonna hold you. He might have close to 100 projects. Beyond Bulletproof is easily, for me, one of the best. For me, it's my favorite and it's his best project. The fact that you can play it from start to finish, the fact that you have Mozzy, and I've already done an album review on this, so I won't do too much to y'all on this one, but the fact that you have Mozzy, who's known as a gangster rapper, he's able to give you songs like Bulletproofly, give you songs like Over King, the posse cuts, and how they just fit and all mesh so well together. Beyond Bulletproof may not have had the impact, or it may not have sold platinum or done this or that, but in terms of content, subject matter, execution, and just being able to put an album in and just sit back, this is an elite album. I give this album 4.5 to 5 stars, and it's Mozzy's best album to me. I am the only one that I know that holds this opinion about Beyond Bulletproof. I'm the only one that I know that really likes the album as much as I do. And at first I wasn't sure if it was because I'm just hyping it up and I just really like the album for the moment, but months and months have passed. And when I play this album, I still get the same feeling. So I wonder how Mozzy feels about this. Like when he was recording this, did he feel like I've just put together the best piece of work that I ever have? Like, this is it. Did he feel like that? And then obviously Mozzy had the Occupational Hazard mixtape, which came right after. Good mixtape album, but this beyond Bulletproof, this is special right here. So that was my end of year 2020 list. A couple honorable mentions, obviously The Weeknd, After Hours. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I didn't include R&B here simply because it's just not enough. I didn't listen to enough this year to make a whole separate list. Usually I do. Maybe next year, we'll see some better R&B albums. Honorable mentions, shout out to Currency and Harry Fraud, The Outrunners. That was just outside my top 10. Reasonable Drought by Stove God and Rock Marcy. The Light Pack by Joey Badass. Good News by Mackin. Capital Gains by Willie the Kid, etc., etc. So yeah, be sure to stay tuned and subscribe for 2021. Y'all know we do this every year. You can go to top5rapwebsite.com, click end of year lists, and see my opinion on years dating back to even 2011, I think. I think I did one for 2010 too, but I don't think that's on the site. Anyways, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And this is top5rapwebsite.com.